Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, where today, excellent in the Tier 7 Premium Soviet destroyer, the Leningrad, is going to be facing a bit of an uphill struggle in this Tier 8 domination match here on the Trap map. Why is that then, Jingles? Well, take a look at the matchmaking. It's not quite as bad as it could be, but it's still pretty terrible. For a start, he's a Tier 7 destroyer in a Tier 8 battle, so on the bright side, at least he's not bottom tier, but he's not top tier either. Also, there is a carrier in play, and it may just be a Tier 6 carrier, but you get spotted and destroyed by a Tier 6 carrier's teammates just as easily as you get spotted and destroyed by a Tier 8 carrier's teammates. There is also a radar cruiser in play. The enemy team have a Baltimore, and it is just one radar cruiser, but that's still one more radar cruiser than most destroyer players would prefer. And then, just to add insult to injury, there are also 2 submarines on each team, which isn't as much of a problem for the Leningrad, because while a submarine will always be stealthier than a destroyer, the Leningrad stealth is pretty bad. So Excellent was probably not counting on outspotting anything other than the cruisers and battleships anyway, but still. I've seen many people comment that every time they see this kind of matchmaking when they're in a destroyer, I've seen people comment that when they see this kind of matchmaking in anything, a carrier and 2 submarines on each team, they just want to quit the battle right at the start anyway. And it's worse if you're in a destroyer. On the other hand, let's talk about the Leningrad itself, because it's a pretty good ship, despite the limitations that we've already covered thanks to the matchmaking in this battle. And there's one of them right there, already spotted by aircraft, so the enemy team already know he's coming, and they know exactly which cap circle he's heading for. But knowing where he's going and being able to do anything about it are 2 entirely different things, because as you've probably noticed, the Leningrad is fast. This thing will do not far short of 50 knots at full speed with the speed boost running. In fact, I like to play this thing in the Tier 7 Operation Narai, because there are a couple of things that need to be done in that battle. Somebody has to go south and deal with the transport ships, and somebody has to go north and deal with the enemy carrier. And the Leningrad is fast enough that I can do both in the same battle. You zoom south and kill the transports, and then you kick in the engine boost and you zoom north, and you can often beat the rest of the team getting to the aircraft carrier and sinking it with your torpedoes. Oh yes, let's talk about the Leningrad's torpedoes. Actually, we'll talk about that in a moment, because he managed to get spotted at almost exactly the same time as he spotted the Mayhan over there, which suggests that the Mayhan does not have a 10-point captain with a concealment expert skill. The Mayhan instantly smokes up, and this brings us to the subject of the Leningrad's torpedoes. Because in any other Soviet destroyer below Tier 8, and even the Tier 8 Kiev first has to research and unlock the upgraded torpedoes, but in any other Soviet destroyer below Tier 8, your torpedoes wouldn't have the range to reach that smoke screen and flush the Mayhan out of it, because Soviet destroyers are famous for having suicide torpedoes, which only have a 4-kilometer range, which means you have to close the suicide range to be able to torpedo anybody. But the Leningrad, even though it's only Tier 7, and probably because it's a premium, gets 8-kilometer range torpedoes. And they're pretty good. They're not the fastest torpedoes in the world with a speed of 60 knots, but they're not slow either. And they do 15,000 damage. And since the Mayhan is smoked up, and, well, you know, smoke screens work both ways. We can't see the Mayhan, but none of the enemy ships over there can see anybody on the other side of the Mayhan smoke screen until the Mayhan leaves it and starts spotting for them. I think he got scared out of there by the torpedoes. And these 130mm guns hit hard. And the Leningrad has 5 of them. They have very high shell velocity, but they're mounted in kind of slow-turning turrets. So at a close-range gunfight like this, particularly against an American destroyer like the Mayhan over there, it can be very difficult if you start maneuvering to avoid return fire. It can be very difficult to actually keep your guns trained on the target because the turrets turn so slowly. American destroyers with their faster turning turrets don't have this problem, so be very wary of getting into gunfights at short range with American destroyers. At medium to long range, however, because of your insane speed, which makes it difficult for Americans with their floatier shells to actually hit you, and your ridiculously high gun velocity, which makes it easier for you to hit them, the Leningrad is king. Of course, that's assuming all other things are equal and the Mayhan's teammates aren't shooting at you. And they are, so I think it's time to get the hell out of here while the getting is good. So the Mayhan lives to fight another day, despite being badly beaten up by Excellent and his teammates. But, well, Excellent also lives to fight another day, despite being beaten up by the Mayhan and his teammates. And while I have accounted for one other enemy destroyer, they have also lost a submarine. Now, they're about to lose that one. They have already, despite Excellent telling him, get the hell back, submerge, whatever, do anything. But the team have already lost their U-69, who managed to get nuked on the surface by the enemy Bismarck. I don't know what it is about these submarine players. They don't seem to realise that they can actually submerge. The Fiji's just taken care of the other one. He left it way too late to submerge. He was like, oh, I'm getting shot at. Maybe I should do something about this. And nope, depth charge by the Fiji. The good news here is that despite losing both of their submarines and one of their destroyers already, Excellent has at least chased that Mayhan out of this cap. He's smoking up for safety since, he doesn't want to get reset. His stealth is terrible. The Mayhan might respot him at any moment. And all of these enemy ships are being spotted by his remaining teammates, so he can farm some damage on them, set some fires, and so on, while capping uninterrupted. Yeah, the Mayhan is not contesting this cap circle. So that's good. The team now have one cap. Of course, they're 200 points behind. But on the bright side, while the team have only managed to sink 2 enemy ships thus far, one of those is the Baltimore, the radar cruiser, so that's good news for all destroyer captains. The good news is short-lived, however, because the San Diego that sank the Baltimore then immediately gets torpedoed and sunk by one of the 2 surviving enemy submarines. It could have been worse, though. The San Diego, despite being an American Tier 8 cruiser, does not actually have radar. That is not Excellent's team's radar cruiser. The bad news is the Indianapolis is, and it's Tier 7, and it has a really shit radar. So, hey, at least that team have a radar. It remains to be seen whether or not it can actually be put to good use. Also, the chances are pretty good that they're going to nail that New Mexico. These standard type American battleships are so incredibly slow that if you don't notice that your team are already pulling back and running, and you're still moving forward, you're going to die sooner rather than later. Oh, and the Mayhan just popped up, right as Excellent's smoke screen was expiring, and that's potentially really bad news, because as he leaves the smoke screen and shoots at the New Mexico, his detection range blooms to the maximum range of his guns, which means the Mayhan can still see him, and is still spotting him. And there's some incoming fire. Not a lot, but he doesn't have an awful lot of health left, and in the 20 seconds that it's going to take for him to go undetected, yeah, that could have been a lot worse. Meanwhile, up to the northeast, things are going really badly for the team. They have 2 surviving ships. They're both battleships, a Prince Heinrich and a Fuso. And they're being hunted by at least 1 destroyer and probably 2 submarines, as well as that Bismarck. In fact, the only good news up there is that, for some bizarre reason, the enemy team haven't already taken Capture Circle Charlie, despite it being wide open and with the Fuso and Prince Heinrich completely unable to contest it. The Mayhan has sneaked back. Naturally, Excellent starts shooting at him. The team have just lost the Fuso. They're now 300 points behind. And for some equally bizarre reason, nobody appears to want to help him sink the Mayhan, although the Indianapolis on the team has popped his radar, although he's too far away to spot the Mayhan with it, so that's a complete waste of a Tier 7 radar. He is able to spot the Fiji with his radar, though, although the Fiji was spotted by the Kansas and the Adachi anyway, so whatever. Meanwhile, up to the northeast, that Prince Heinrich is having the fight of his life. He's just managed to burn down and sink the Bismarck. But then, further disaster strikes. The team have just lost their carrier. The Furious has been sunk by the Jervis. Which Jervis? This Jervis. The Furious was up there in the same postcode as the Prince Heinrich and the Fuso. Why? I'm sure smarter people than me will fail to come up with a logical explanation for that. Meanwhile, the Indianapolis just got hit by a single torpedo, and you know what that means, don't you? There's an enemy submarine around. While the Prince Heinrich up to the northeast continues fighting for his life and getting more kills, there's some drama about to start unfolding down here in the southwest. Notice that Excellent, the Indianapolis, the Udachi, and the Kansas are all getting the hell out of here. presumably hoping to take out the Fiji along the way, but they are all vacating Cap Circle Alpha. Notice that the enemy California and Richelieu, after watching their New Mexico die as he overextended, have now found their man pants and they are charging south. And while the Fiji does succeed in taking out the Yadachi, but is on extremely low health and unable to avoid the Yadachi's torpedoes, and with the Indianapolis about to die, Excellent, having basically no health and not really in a position to get into any kind of fight, the friendly Massachusetts, who does manage to finish off the Mayhan, at least with his secondaries, but he has less than half of his health remaining, and he is charging straight north while the rest of his teammates are running away to the east. He is charging straight north, right into that California and Richelieu. And it looks like he's about to get some attention from the enemy carrier as well. How do I know this? Because I have 2 eyes and a mini-map. Apparently the Massachusetts does not. Let's not forget there's an enemy submarine around there as well. We did see one of those single acoustic homing torpedoes strike the Indianapolis earlier. But okay, maybe the Massachusetts isn't aware of that. I haven't seen anybody warning everybody in chat that there's a submarine around here somewhere, but the Massachusetts is still voluntarily choosing to charge straight into 2 battleships and a carrier, even if he doesn't know there's at least 1 submarine out there as well, while watching the rest of his teammates abandon that flank. So the only logical conclusion that I can come to is that the Massachusetts captain does not have at least 1 functional eye and a working minimap, because if he possesses either of those things, and he's still charging into 2 enemy battleships and a carrier, with a submarine lurking around there as well, and the rest of his team getting the hell out of there and flipping the central cap here at Bravo, then he has to be a couple of tools short of a full set. Oh look, he's dead. Is he going to accept responsibility for his poor decision making? Of course he isn't. It's everybody else's fault for not backing him up. He's going to have a few choice words to say about his team in chat before too long. Meanwhile, the Prince Heinrich is absolutely killing it. He's just nailed the Jervis as well. And he spotted one of the submarines. Can you see the difference? Yeah, between the 2 battleships. One of them just gets shit done. The other one, there it is, too bad, no help in chat. The other one, incapable of looking at a minimap, blames everybody else for his failures. I mean, the Massachusetts did sink the Mayhan, and I mean that literally. The ship did it, right? It was nothing to do with the captain. Secondaries fire automatically. So there's that, and that was probably a factor in Excellent and the rest of his team being able to flip this central cap at Bravo while hauling ass out of there. And the Mayhan being dead is important, because the California and the Richelieu are probably going to have to sail south to flip Alpha, and they're not the fastest ships in the battle. I mean, the Richelieu isn't slow, neither's the California really, but they're not as fast as a Mayhan. So while hopefully both the Richelieu and the California are steaming south to flip Alpha, that Mayhan could have been spotting Excellent and his teammates while they were flipping Bravo, allowing the Richelieu and the California, I keep wanting to say Colorado, you won't get me this time, while the Richelieu and the California would be able to flip Alpha and shell the ships flipping Bravo. But because the Massachusetts secondaries killed the Mayhan, that never happened. Bizarrely though, that doesn't explain why the enemy carrier hasn't been spotting anybody flipping caps, allowing the California and the Richelieu to actually do something other than steam south and try to flip Alpha, which at least one of them is now doing. But thanks to the Leningrad's insane speed, Excellent is about to finish flipping the cap circle up here at Charlie as well. And for some bizarre reason, the enemy carrier isn't interested in doing anything about that either. It's nice when the enemy team has the spotting advantage and just throws it away, isn't it? Because, well, not that long ago, Excellent's team were 300 points behind, and now they're 50 points up, and gaining points faster than the enemy team because they have 2 of the 3 caps. Of course, it's going to be very difficult for them to stop the enemy team from flipping Bravo. I mean, the Kansas there still has most of his health, and the Prince Heinrich isn't dead yet. And he's been doing an amazing job, but that Indianapolis is going to explode the second somebody even looks at it, And Excellent does not have a large amount of health remaining either. So Excellent's team now have the advantage. They have an even number of ships with the enemy team. They have the caps. They have the points. I'm sure they'd be a lot happier if they knew exactly where that U-190 was. Indianapolis is using his radar there, and he's managed to catch him on the surface. Nail that little sucker. Oh, he's managed to dive and go undetected. None of those... Oh, wait, no, he started a fire. I do often see comments from people saying, how the hell can a submarine burn? It's underwater. Yeah, it's... The fire's on the inside, where it's at its most dangerous, where it's going to burn up all the oxygen and suffocate the crew, even if it doesn't kill them from burning. He's got him. I don't know why the U-190 did not use his damage control. He hasn't been spotted for the last 3 or 4 minutes. It's not like it was going to be on cooldown, but he chose to just burn to death. I mean, that was literally his choice. Use the damage control and don't burn to death, or don't. And he chose don't. Either way, whatever his logical reasoning, Excellent's team are now 200 points ahead with a 2-cap advantage and a 1-kill lead. But here comes the Ranger. And the Indianapolis is probably not going to survive this. Excellent's trying to help by dropping a smoke. And I'm not quite sure what happened there. I have no idea why the smoke screen would prevent him from seeing a ship on his own team. But hey, that's what happened. Sadly, the Indianapolis didn't want to slow down and make himself an easier target for the rocket planes, so he's not able to take advantage of the smokescreen that Excellent tried to provide. The Prince Heinrich has gone down. Despite his stellar performance thus far, he was trying to work his way around the flank in order to get some crossfires on those 2 enemy battleships, but they kind of crossfired him, so he's dead. Despite that, Excellent's team are still 100 points ahead, but the Prince Heinrich really should have been chilling out. There's no point in trying to win harder when you are winning. So what's the Kansas doing? The Kansas is an absolutely terrible Tier 8 battleship. It's got a lot of guns, but they're all crap. And it's really, really slow, and it's a huge target. At least when the Massachusetts did this earlier, he was doing it in a good ship. The Kansas has no such excuse. What are you doing, Kansas? Don't charge down in between 2 enemy ships. At least the Prince Heinrich had the sense to take the flank. The Kansas is charging in between 2 enemy battleships and giving broadside to both of them at the same time. Oh, well, on the bright side, despite the Kansas throwing himself away, they are still 50 points ahead. Oh, are those dive bombers going for the Indianapolis? Well, it's an American cruiser. It's got great AA, and it is only a Tier 6 carrier. I'm sure it'll be fine. Well, shit. So the enemy team are now ahead. But Excellent does still have 2 of the cap circles. But the enemy team have a California and a Richelieu steaming northeast at full speed. So he's probably not going to be able to hold on to that central cap for long. Then again, he knows that they have to take that central cap, so he might be able to get lucky and ambush them with torpedoes. At the moment, because he does have 2 of the caps, he is catching up to the enemy team's points lead. But the thing is, if he's still inside this cap circle, when either of those battleships arrives here, they'll know where he is, because they won't be capturing the circle, they'll just be contesting it, and the carrier will find him. Is he still going to be ahead on points when the Richelieu enters the cap circle? Ooh, he kind of is, and he kind of isn't. Takes a couple of shots there. Maybe he'll get lucky and set a fire. He doesn't get lucky and set a fire. He does score a torpedo hit. It does set a flood. Obviously, the Richelieu, because he's not in a U-190 and he has a working damage control, uses the damage control. But here's where things get interesting. Look at the points. Both teams possess 1 capture point. So both teams are getting 3 points every few seconds. So one team's ahead by 1 point, and then the other team's ahead by 2 points. And then one team's ahead by 1 point, and then the other team's ahead on 2 points. We have a sort of Schrodinger's points situation here. Similar to the thought experiment, Schrodinger's cat, where you have a cat who's either dead or alive in a box, but you don't know which it is until you open the box. The probabilities collapse and the universe decides whether or not the cat is dead or alive. We have a Schrodinger's points situation going on here. which team is ahead. Could be one, could be the other. So Excellent is going to have to collapse the probabilities for himself. Now this is hellishly risky, as you just saw. The Richelieu guessed which way he was going. He fired in order to be seen, so that the Richelieu would fire as well, and the Richelieu would remain detected through the smoke. Now that he is not seen, he managed to get some fires, which was incredibly lucky. We know the Richelieu's damage control is on cooldown. The universe observes the death of the Richelieu, the probabilities collapse, the quantum state is resolved. Excellent, with 8 seconds to go, is definitely ahead on points, and he's done it. Bit of a nail-biter at the end there, with Excellent's team desperately trying to throw away a win, and we even got to have a practical demonstration of quantum physics, so it's a win for everybody, except, you know, the enemy team, obviously. Anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Congratulations, Excellent. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.